Hello, hello, hello. TM24 here, and we are back with some more Marvel Snap content. If you are just now finding the channel, welcome. I hope you find this video entertaining and informative. And if you are a returning viewer, hey, I really do appreciate the continued support. My llama here appreciates the continued support. And today, I've got a pretty good video for you. So as you can see here, I've got 6 decks up there. And you'll pretty quickly notice that they are the common abilities archetypes. So what I did is I put together a deck of each archetype. You know, let's say it's one of the better performing decks of each archetype, and I'm gonna go through them with y'all, and I'll give you potential swap outs if you're looking to change some cards in each of these decks. So we are going to start with ongoing, and this is the ongoing list that we've got. We've got Ant-Man. Our only 1-drop. Ant-Man is huge. You know, a 1/4 can be absolutely nasty. With Spectrum coming down, even better, right? Our 2-drops, we've got Armor, Colossus, and Lizard. Armor's there to kind of protect some of our things, whether it be Ant-Man, well, specifically Ant-Man, and maybe some of our bigger cards like Warpath. Colossus is great. He can't be destroyed or moved or have his power reduced. So in a world where, you know, high evolutionary exists, Colossus is a great card to have. Lizard is 2/5. He just forces your opponent to commit to putting 4 cards in that lane. Otherwise, he's going to be really, really tough to overcome. We've got 3 3-drops. We've got Mr. Fantastic, who's just a 3/6, kind of spreading out your power, allowing you to, you know, kind of decide where you want to go. Captain America is going to be buffing all the cards at one of our locations, and Cosmo is there as kind of a counter. This is an ongoing deck. Cosmo is going to hard counter those on-reveal abilities that your opponent has, so those Galactuses, or even those on-reveal decks, which we'll talk about one of those next. Next up, we've got only 1 4-drop, and it is Warpath. So 4/9 as long as one of your other locations are empty. Now there definitely are some things that can throw this off, right? I think it's Central Park. If it throws those squirrels out there, Warpath is going to feel pretty bad at those times. But hey, if you can keep one of your lanes empty, 4 energy for 9 power is great. We've got 2 5-drops. We've got Iron Man and we've got Claw. Iron Man we know is going to be doubling up our total power at a location. And then Claw is going to be adding 6 power to the right location, being 4 power himself. And then last but not least are our 2 6-drops. We've got Spectrum, who's going to give all of our ongoing cards, which is everything except for herself, +2. And then we've got Onslaught, who can double our ongoing effects at that location. So whether we're doubling up an Iron Man potentially, maybe we're doubling up Claw, whatever it may be, Onslaught is going to double those up. So this is an ongoing list. As you can see, most of these cards are ongoing. Spectrum is the one that is an on-reveal, but she's basically ongoing because that is what she's buffing up. Now, I do really, really like this list, but there are a couple cards that I personally like to switch out. So I'll show you guys those ones right now. I love Control. So if I can get Professor X into a deck, I'm going to try and do that. And unfortunately, that's going to come at the cost of one of these 5-drops. Typically, I like to get rid of Iron Man, even though he can be huge. I feel like I'd rather be able to lock down a lane. I really like what Claw gives us, allowing us to get power to another location, which is why Claw gets to stay for now. Additionally, I'm cutting Iron Man. I'm also going to cut Onslaught. Now, the next one that I'm going to put in here is not an ongoing card, but fits in well with this deck, and that's Destroyer. Destroyer is going to be great, right? If we can lock down a lane with Professor X, or we've got armor up, we can toss our Destroyer out there kind of free and know that he's going to be okay. We can put him on top of a Cosmo lane for 18 power, and if Cosmo's got anything else with him, hey, that's just a great lane that we're going to dump 15 power at the end of the game with. So this is kind of a little bit different list. Additionally, I typically don't play Warpath because I don't like that, you know, he can be hurt so badly by, you know, a simple card coming through. So I typically swap Warpath as well. Now, it really depends on what type of 4-drop I'm looking to play. Atuma is a great option because he has synergy with both armor and Professor X. He can also just drop him onto a lane of his own. 10 power is nothing to sneeze at. So I really like Atuma as well in this list. And while not technically an ongoing, still over 75% of this deck is ongoing. And these are kind of the other cards that I would look to switch out. Other than that, I really like the way this list is built. You know, you've got something typically on 2 and 3, and then from there you're figuring out how you're going to win the game. So this is one of the ongoing lists that I personally like to play myself. But let's get into the next one, and that is going to be on reveal. Now, I know the video that I put out yesterday was an on reveal is back video. If you haven't checked that out, that's a good one as well. But I didn't want to be lazy and use the exact same list. So what I did is I built a different one here for you. So we're going to go through it. You're going to see a lot of the same pieces. And actually, we only subbed out a couple of pieces, but I had to get my guy Gambit in there. I really love Gambit. I love destroying what our opponents got out there. If that makes me a bad guy, I apologize, but I think Gambit's a fun card. Additionally, we tossed in Storm. So I really like Storm in this list in particular because we have Dr. Doom that can reach that location. We have White Tigers that can reach that location. And we have Arnim Zola. So Zola can definitely throw that Black Panther or whatever into that Storm location, which is why we added her to this list. Going through the rest of the list, we've got Nebula. I think Nebula is great simply because you were going to force our opponent to commit to her. Otherwise, she's going to start to get out of control. Next up, we've got 2 on reveal cards, an Iceman, a little bit of disruption, and an early 1-drop. And then Scorpion, again, more disruption, a 2-drop. Now we've got our 3 drops. We already talked about Gambit and Storm. Ironheart just makes sense in most of these decks because she's going to be powering up our other cards. Now, any on reveal list has to include Wong. I'm pretty sure it's a requirement given that he is doubling up, the on reveal abilities. Next up are our 5 drops. We've got White Tiger adding those Tiger Spirits, and then we've got Black Panther doubling up his power. Finally, we've got our 3 6-drops. We've got Zola, which we talked about a little bit, tossing Black Panther into those other lanes. We've got Dr. Doom spreading the Doom bots. And then we've got Odin, who can come through and give us even more value off some of these on reveals. Now, if you guys haven't seen the video that I did yesterday, the other list that I was doing, I will show you right now. We did not include Storm or Gambit in that list. What I included was Luke Cage, simply because there are a ton of high evolutionaries running around. I think instead of Nebula, we had Sunspot, and we had a different 3-drop, and actually it was Wolfsbane. So this was another version of the list that I was running. A very solid list, but I think the one that I showed you first is probably a little bit better. Like I said, I really enjoy Gambit, and I think Storm makes a whole ton of sense. But let's get on to the next one, and that is actually going to be the No ability. And with High Evolutionary, No ability is going to belong to him. I think probably even the top 2 or 3 best No ability decks are going to be High Evolutionary, except for maybe Patriot. So we'll talk about Patriot at the end, but in terms of No ability, this is one of the lists that I like to play. This is essentially a lockdown list, right? We've got High Evolutionary, and we are using Wasp, Misty Knight, Cyclops, Thing, Abomination, and the Hulk. So we're gonna get all the benefit of these cards that typically have no ability but are given an ability thanks to High Evolutionary. So our other ones are going to be Sunspot and Nebula, 2 of the best 1-drops in the game. Sunspot especially has a lot of synergy with this list because we like to end our turns with at least some energy left to get some of these abilities, Misty Knights, Cyclops, things like that. So Sunspot has a ton of synergy. Additionally, we have Storm. Now, I really like Storm in this list as well, again, because we're including Dr. Doom. but also because the Thing is probably one of the best follow-ups to Storm in the game right now. Essentially, he's a 4/9, so that is just absolutely crazy. And I think if you're going to play High Evolutionary and the Lockout version specifically, Storm obviously is going to be in there, and the following up with the Thing just makes sense. We know what Cyclops is doing. He's bringing to the table thanks to High Evolutionary, which I'll show you that right here. And then we've got the Thing, which we just talked about. Our 5-drops are Spider-Man and Abomination. So Spider-Man, obviously this is a Lockout deck, so Spider-Man's going to be able to come down and, hopefully give us a lane that we've already won, allowing us to focus our attention on those other locations. Abomination is going to be discounted thanks to us applying, enemy cards with negative power. And then our 2 6-drops are Dr. Doom, who is like I think Dr. Doom is in most of the decks that I play right now just because he is so strong right now. Whether you're being locked out by Spider-Man or storms are coming through or it's a location you just can't reach, Dr. Doom provides a ton of value. And then finally, our last 6-drop is going to be, the Hulk. And we know he's being powered up with each turn that we don't, we have unspent energy left. So a really solid list here. But it doesn't have to be the only list you play. No Ability is really thriving right now. And we've got another No Ability list that is doing very well. And I'll show you all that right now. And it's actually in the form of a Lockjaw list, which I actually prefer this list to the, kind of the Lockout one, just because it has a bunch of potential to kind of go crazy. So we're adding Lockjaw, we're adding Thor because we have Mjolnir's Hammer, which we can put through Lockjaw, and then we have, where is my guy, Odin? Right here. We've also got a 5-drop that we like to include, especially because we've got some 0-cost cards in Jane Foster. And then the last 2 slots, it kind of depends on what route you want to go. One should probably be taken up with Jubilee because you've got a lot of things that you'd love to pull out. And then that last spot, you can kind of go a couple different ways. Magneto, very solid option. I've seen Infinite, but sometimes he kind of gets stuck in your hand. Chavez, a great option because it's going to give you a consistent draw. So this is another No Ability version deck, obviously being powered by High Evolutionary. Now, lastly in this No Ability list, archetype, there is the Patriot style. And Patriot's been around for forever and deserves to be. It's super strong and just seems to be able to survive and kind of thrive. A lot of these cards, well actually all these cards except for maybe one, aren't going to be in the Patriot list, and we will build that right now in front of you guys. So first up, if we're building Patriot, obviously we need him in the list first. We're keeping Wasp because Wasp having no ability and being free is great. Another 3-drop we're going to include is Mystique, and there's one more that I always like to include, and that is actually Debris. She's going to disrupt your opponent's side of the board while putting some rocks out there. Not a bad thing because you can power up those rocks. Now, whenever you think of Patriot, there's one card that definitely comes to mind, and that is going to be Ultron, putting out those drones that are going to be powered up as well. Next up, we're going to go to the 5-drops here, and we have Blue Marvel, who's going to power up everything as well. So really like that inclusion. And then we can kind of take a look at these no ability cards. Squirrel Girl is a great one because we're going to be tossing those squirrels out. Misty Knight, another very solid option. Mr. Sinister, putting a clone out is solid, but sometimes feels a little bit bad because only the clone is being buffed. Shocker, not too bad of an inclusion in this list. Brood, you could definitely toss in there thanks to the Broodlings. You've got a lot of 3-drops here, 4 of them, and your board can fill up quickly. So typically if you're gonna play Brood, you're not gonna play Debris. If you're gonna play Debris, you're probably not playing Brood. So that's just a little warning there, because your board can fill up quite quickly. Another card that you could put in if you like is actually Khazar. We've got lots of 1-drops here, so Khazar definitely makes sense if I could find him. There he is. And then we've got 1 slot left, and that can belong to another 6-drop. Now there's 2 of them. Onslaught definitely makes a ton of sense, powering up our Patriots, our Blue Marvel, potentially Khazar. If you don't want to go Onslaught, I still think Dr. Doom is a good inclusion, but Onslaught is probably a little bit better if you're going to go for a Patriot style deck. This is probably one of the ones that I would use. Maybe I would tweak this a little bit, maybe take out Brood or Debris, and in their place put Cyclops, just so that our board doesn't fill up too quickly. So this would probably be the list that I would go with if I'm going to play a no ability Patriot style list. So I gave you 3 for kind of the price of 1 here, but next up is going to be discard, and I think there is a clear-cut winner, and I think it's this list. It's it's the MODOK discard list. So we'll run through this super quick, but if anyone has watched any of my meta review videos, you will have seen this list before. Nebula as a 1-drop, I think she's great, forces your opponent to commit. This being a discard list, Morbius is going to be huge. Now, the rest of our 2-drops, we've got Wolverine, Swarm, and Colleen Wing. Now, typically you want to keep Wolverine and Swarm in your hand. If you can use Colleen Wing to discard one of them, great. You can feel free to do that, but chances are you're going to draw MODOK, so you can use MODOK to discard those. Wolverine will come out, and you'll get a couple of free copies of Swarm. 3-drops are going to be Storm, Lady Sif, and Swordmaster. Storm is great in this list because you have really nice follow-up in Dracula, or if you've been able to hold Morbius in your hand, Morbius on top of that Storm lane feels really strong as well. Lady Sif is there to hopefully power up our Apocalypse. Swordmaster, now I typically don't like the randomness effect, so discarding a card from your hand, but because we have some pretty good options in Wolverine, Swarm, and Apocalypse, I've kind of come around a little bit to having Swordmaster in our list. Now our 4-drop, only one, is going to be Dracula. Obviously the idea here is to either discard Apocalypse a bunch of times and have a massive Dracula, or if you need to play that huge Apocalypse, Dracula will still hit Chavez because you're drawing her on 6. So that kind of clears up the 6-drops as well. And our 5-drop slot is going to belong to MODOK. So that is probably the best discard list out there. Now there are other versions that you can play. I've definitely seen some that are including Hela in there, but with randomness, it's a bit tough. So if you're going to go for something that's consistent, going to win you a lot of games, this would probably be the one. The Hela list looks a bit different. You pull out Apocalypse. I like to keep MODOK. Dracula, probably not so much. When I am playing Hela, typically I am playing I'm calling it like a Hela surprise. So what we do is we go with Invisible Woman. If we could find her, maybe she's hiding. There she is. So we take Invisible Woman. We're cutting Wolverine. We're cutting Colleen Wing, Storm, Swarm, Lady Sif, Swordmaster, and this is probably going to make up our base right now. And of course, with this being a Hela style deck, we're going to keep Hela in there. Now we want to make sure that we don't discard her, which is why we want to hit all of our discard cards on Invisible Woman. Additionally, a way that you could do this is keep Death in your deck as well. And then you can go with something like Lady Sif, Hellcow, and maybe even Swordmaster here. and you're starting to put together a really nice deck here as well. Then you can kind of fill it out with some big 6-drops that hopefully you have discarded and then brought back thanks to Hela. So another discard list that seems to work pretty well. This one can be a bit inconsistent if you're not hitting Invisible Woman, but Death makes it a little bit better because you're guaranteed to discard Death there. Additionally, another card you could include in this list, maybe you want to cut Swordmaster, and because of Lady Sif pretty much always going to be discarding Death, you have a really nice option in Ghost Rider as well, because Ghost Rider is then going to bring back Death. Another inclusion that you could look at, potentially instead of Invisible Woman here, is Black Cat. Black Cat's going to discard herself, so Black Cat getting rid of herself, Ghost Rider bringing her back is really, really nice. Another type of discard game. This one is a little bit, not even a little bit, it is less consistent than the first one, and that's definitely the one that I would play if you're going to play discard. Next up though, we have Move, and I really, really enjoy Move. This is pretty much a pure move deck right here. You can see we've got Human Torch doubling up. Iron Fist is, allowing us to move things like Human Torch, things like Dagger, Vulture, maybe even Craven as well. We see Craven in there though. When cards are moving there, he's getting powered up. Ideally, we've got a lot of cards that would like to go and hit on his location. I think Ghost Spider is awesome, so I'm including her, and she's obviously pulling cards around, a Human Torch, maybe a Vulture. What I really like about this list is if you look at it, everything is going to be 3 and under except for Vision and Heimdall. Yes, I know Spider-Man costs 4, but you're going to be moving around enough that he's going to cost 1. So this is a super cheap list, but you can get a ton of power out of it in the form of Human Torch, Vulture, Dagger, and even Craven sometimes. And that's not even mentioning Multiple Man, who's going to add a copy to those old locations. Ideally, you're buffing some of these move cards up with Hulkbuster. And then we have even more move options in the form of Cloak, Vision. We talked about Vulture a little bit, and then the king of all move cards, Heimdall. So this is the move list that I decided to share with y'all. I think this one is super strong. I know a lot of people aren't using Ghost Spider, but I love the fact that this is such a cheap list. So that's why I like to go with this one. We can definitely take a look at other move cards. Nightcrawler definitely makes sense if you wanted to cut Ghost Spider because he can move and help you discount your Spider-Man. I like Jeff as well, allowing you to get to those other locations. Arrow, potentially to pull some cards away. Maybe you need a bigger finisher and Heimdall's not going to do it for you. Magneto is a great option as well. So you kind of have a few different options, but most of the move cards, at least the strong ones, are going to be in this list in the form of Human Torch, Vulture, Dagger, Craven. Obviously getting a 1/5 Spider-Man feels great as well, but this is a list that it can do surprisingly well. And what's great about Marvel Snap right now is that pretty much every archetype can compete. So Move was dead for a long time, but you can definitely get wins, and this is a list that will allow you to do it. And we've got one more archetype left, and it's actually Destroy. Might be one of the strongest ones. This is a fairly standard Destroy list. Our only 1-drops are Nova and Yondu. Obviously, Yondu is going to feed into our Null and Death, while Nova is going to buff up everything else. Now moving on to our 2-drops, we've got Bucky and Wolverine, who love to be destroyed, Carnage, who likes to do the destroying. 3-drops are going to be Killmonger and Venom, and actually Sabretooth and Deathlock as well. Killmonger is great because he's going to help counter, some of those Nebula, those sunspots, things like that. We don't mind hitting Yondu, and Killmonger is actually one of our ways to proc our Nova as well. Now, Venom, of course, can go absolutely nuts, depending on, what you're gobbling up here. Sabretooth costing 0. Ideally, you're going to destroy him more than one time, so you can get extra value. Maybe you're buffing up your Venom, or he's an extra, +2 on your Carnage. Deathlock is a great option. Sometimes Bucky Barnes into Deathlock just feels like you've already won that lane. Now, we do need some counter cards, and that's going to come in the form of Shang-Chi, hopefully destroying our opponent's strong cards. And then we've got our two huge sources of power. Death, ideally, is going to cost you, 1, 2, or 3, maybe even 0. But you have enough in this list to basically get her down to nothing. And at the same time, you are powering up Null. So this is a very, very solid list, but I do think there's one that has a little bit more upside, and that is actually going to include Arnim Zola here. So what you could probably take out, see, all these fit so well, it's tough to take any out. But if we remove Shang-Chi, we can get Zola in there. We can double up on things like Venom. But a list that I've tried and actually had a ton of fun playing is the Arnim Zola Null list. But in order to actually pull that off, you need magic. So you cut Sabretooth, you get magic in there. And the idea is start powering up that Null through normal destroy methods, which will be obviously our three costs and under. On 5, you're playing magic. On 6, you're playing Null. And then on 7, you're playing Zola on your Null, doubling up the power because you're destroying a super strong Null. So another list that is actually a ton of fun to play. It is a little bit telegraphed because if you're playing magic, you're probably playing Zola. Otherwise, it's really, really tough to beat. Your death is probably going to cost 0 in this game because you have more turns to make things happen. But another destroy list, and this has been a deck list, actually 2 lists for each archetype in Marvel Snap. Now, I hope you guys have found this. I know it was a little bit long-winded, but I hope you found it entertaining, and at least you got some good info out of it. Hopefully there's a deck or 2 that you're looking forward to trying. I'd love to know if you'd make any changes to any of these lists. And, put those in the comments below. I definitely check all the comments out, so I'd be happy to take a look and see what you guys think. If you've hung around till now, I really do appreciate you guys watching the video. If you haven't subscribed or liked the video, now would be a good time to do so. I just gave you guys like at least 12 or 13 decks, so if that doesn't deserve a like and a subscribe, then I'm not sure what does. But I'm going to continue to put out Marvel Snap content either way, and I will see you guys next time. But until then, have some fun.